So in this chapter, we're going to take a look at layers, and layers are an extremely powerful part of working in the computer. They really give you a huge advantage over working in traditional media for a lot of reasons, and we'll cover some of the most important reasons in this chapter. To begin with, let's go ahead and open up the layers palette, and it's right here at the bottom of my stack. I'll double click that to open it. If you don't see the layers, make sure you go to Window, and you come down here to Layers and make sure that that is turned on. Now, the important thing to know is whenever we start a document, we're always going to start with the canvas, as I've said previously. And that canvas is basically what we've been painting on and working on the entire time. However, we do have the ability of creating additional layers that act just like the canvas, but have some additional flexibility. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of that. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the navigator for a minute here by double clicking it. I'm going to get this color set open so I can quickly switch colors. And I'm going to begin to paint just a little bit real quick, like so. Now let's say I want to go ahead and create a new layer. I'm going to go over here to this button right here. I'm going to hold down, and you're going to see a little flyout menu, and you see that new layer is right at the top, so I'm going to choose new layer, and you can see the keyboard shortcut for that is Control, Shift, and N. And now I have a new layer directly above canvas. Now I'm going to go ahead and change colors, something like this blue, and I'm going to go ahead and paint over the top, like so. Now you can see that this is covering up what was underneath, and this looks an awful lot like we just painted two different strokes of pastel on the same canvas. However, if we grab the special tool that's designed for manipulating layers, which is called the layer adjusters right here, looks like a little arrow with this sort of compass next to it, and we click directly on where we painted here. We can't click any empty area, click directly on where we painted. And we'll now have the ability to move this around, and you can see that that allows us to reposition that mark separately from what was underneath. Now, there are some interesting characteristics here that will make life interesting and at the same time complicated when you're working with layers, and the reason why is because we can have a lot of layers. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to paint again, and I'm just going to go ahead and just tap this button to create a new layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab a red and just paint a red like so. And then I'm going to tap again to create a new layer, and I'm going to get maybe, say, an orange, like so. And maybe I'll tap again and get a new layer one more time, and maybe this time I'll grab something like a black, like so. We've generated some fairly complex layering effects here. And like I say, if we were working on a single canvas, this would not be all that uncommon. However, if we go back to the layer adjuster, you'll see that we have a couple of other tools that are available to us in the properties bar. The first one is auto select layer on and off. Now right now that is off. And what that means is that we want to have the layer that we're going to move highlighted over here in our layers palette before we move it. So if I try to say move these orange layers here, I'm not going to succeed. I'm going to move the black layer. And this is the reason why I say you want to click on what you're clicking for, because when we turn on this button, you're going to see a completely different behavior. So I'm going to turn that on, and now it's going to automatically select the appropriate layer that I want to work with. So I'm going to click over here on the yellow. And you can see that now I'm able to move that yellowy orange layer by itself. If I click on the blue, you can see I can move the blue layer by itself. If I click on the red, you can see I can move the red layer by itself. And if I click on the black, you can see I can move the black layer by itself. So it's automatically selecting whatever layer I want to move based on the pixels that I'm clicking on. And that's a very important distinction. If we don't have this on, then if we're on layer 4, we can only move layer 4 no matter what we click on. If we're on layer 3, we can only move layer 3 no matter what we click on. If we're on layer 2, and you get the point. So this gives us some various different ways of working. Generally speaking, I prefer to have this auto select layer on. I just think it's a better way of working because then you can move things based on the pixels that you're clicking rather than trying to navigate through an extensive layer stack. And you can have quite a few layers. Generally speaking, I can get up to 30, 40 layers in a given document. Now you'll also notice there are some other tools here. We have move to bottom, move to top, move down one layer, and move up one layer. And these are just organizational tools to move our layers in the stack. So if I want to move layer 2 to be above layer 3, I can go ahead and say move up one layer. And now you can see that layer 2 is above layer 3. And if I want to move it above layer 4, I will just go ahead and click on that layer to make sure I have it and then move up one layer. I could also just as easily click it here and drag it in the stack. And wherever you see that little blue line, that's going to be where this is going to be dropped in the stack. So there's just a couple of different ways that you can manipulate the way that these layers are stacked and ultimately the effect that they achieve for you. Now, like I said, this is a very powerful and very complex method of working. So I want you to get used to the idea that the layer adjuster tool, along with your layers palette, allows you to manipulate and work with these various different layers.